It's been a long damn time. This year marks 10 years since I tried to end it all. I almost did it too, and yet now I have a life I never dreamed I would have. A career, a home, and so many other things besides. But still, in so many ways, I still feel small, directionless, beholden to the same old demons I've always struggled with. And I don't know if I ever really changed at all. And that terrifies me. Guess I just deal with it the only way I know how.
Hello and welcome to a very special interview. A year and a half ago, I started 15 Minutes of Fame with the hopes of being a platform where independent artists could amplify their own music and use their features from this platform to promote and market their music. Last September, I had the privilege of reviewing a uniquely special album called Tales of a Failed Altruist. This album was memorable in a lot of ways. It was dynamic, it was diverse, and lyrically, it was one of the more bold pieces of work I'd ever heard. From the beginning, Here's the First Thing You Should Know addresses not only suicidal thoughts, but plans to act and a failed attempt to commit suicide. Teenage Cancer references a teenager who struggled to identify themselves, and this resulted in a lie to their friends that they had cancer. I also remember reading the submission, how this artist had wanted to make an album for a long time, but didn't feel their skill capacity can enable them to do so. It wasn't until after they went to school and became a professional recording engineer that they were empowered to make and record this album. And when you listen to the album, it's mind blowing to think they didn't think they were capable of making this music. Now, a little more than a year later, they are preparing to release an EP entitled Am I Still Enough on December 8th. I would like to welcome back to the 15 Minutes of Fame platform, Han.
Thank you, Jeff. It's really good to be back. Thank you for having me.
I am so pumped that you are here. I cannot wait to get into this album. I can't wait to, or EP. I can't wait to sort of unpack everything that's there. And if I'm not mistaken, you've also got a little treat for us with a live acoustic performance. Is that right?
Yes, it is. I will be performing A Moth in Circles, which is track 4 off the EP.
Oh my God. I literally asked a question about because it's my favorite song on the EP. But yeah, that's great. Awesome. I can tell you I'm really excited about it. I hope the listeners are excited about it. That's okay. I'm just gonna kind of go ahead and jump into some questions here and let's hear your thoughts on some of these things, okay?
Fine by me. Let's do it.
All right. So after Tales of a Failed Altruist, you did a tour of New York and the surrounding areas and put out a live album. You also released a couple of singles, Stuck in the Midwest and Don't Touch My Body.
Yes, I
Can you
did.
give us a little recap of how everything was received as you unpacked everything from the album, the shows, and everything else?
Well, it was a funny thing, going on this little like it was kind of like a smaller tour. Like it was mostly just my band and I. Like we had never really, but like before Altruist came out, we hadn't really played that many shows. We'd done a few here and there, but it was like the kind of thing where like we would get together, we'd play a show, and then we wouldn't do anything for 6 months because all of us were primarily still in school at the time, and so it was just difficult to manage the logistics of everything. But once the album came out, I knew I really wanted to make a push and play the shows and get them in front of people. And it was really great to be able to bring those songs to life on the stage. Really scary as well because that was the first time I'd like made an effort to like play gigs regularly, and so it was a lot of work to learn to put myself out there in front of an audience. But The live album went over really well. The release show that we did was honestly such a wonderful experience, and it really helped make clear to me the importance of giving people a tangible experience that they can latch onto. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
because of course it's one thing to like be able to sit at home and listen to the songs on streaming or like on a CD or what have you, but it's entirely something else to be able to bring it before the listener physically and give them a show that they'll remember. And so people still talk to me about that show sometimes and the other shows that we've played, and I've discovered a whole new love for that side of things, live performance, and actually taking these songs that people have associations with and bringing them into the light and making it a tangible experience. So it was really fun. And then the singles are, I'm sure, something we're going to talk about more later because the two songs you mentioned, "Stuck in the Midwest" and "Don't Touch My Body," are clearly not on this EP. So um, there's some backstory there that we can get into. But this EP was a bit of a change in direction for me
Yeah.
that I didn't necessarily plan on. Um, I'm pleased with how it came out, but it was definitely the product of some interesting circumstances, and we can delve into that a little bit more if you like. But that's kind of the long and short
Absolutely.
of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I love about your music is that you're sort of unapologetically apologetic, if that makes sense.
It's a funny way
Uh,
to phrase it, but yes.
yeah, you're not afraid to own your shit, and you're also a big enough person to apologize for it as well, which is pretty incredible. Where do you think that comes from? Because not everybody is honestly capable of that kind of honesty and integrity. What do you think that derives from?
I mean, it's a hard question to answer, and it's something that I've been struggling to answer myself for a long, long time. But I think a lot of it comes from my upbringing. The last time I was on, we talked about growing up in Silicon Valley and kind of being
Yeah.
surrounded by big tech and all of these incredibly financially wealthy families, and like going to like a school that is like, a public school that is nonetheless renowned for producing lots of graduates to go on to do high profile things and go into big business and so on. And so it was just a lot of pressure on me growing up. And I think growing up, I was held to a very strict standard of what was acceptable and what was not. And obviously that affected me in a great many ways because now instead of external people holding me to those standards, my teachers, my parents, what have you, now it comes from within me as well. And
Mhm.
of course that can be damaging. There's a lot of things about having that environment where like I'm constantly unable to be satisfied with the things that I do, and obviously that's not healthy, but I do think it has led to a lot of introspection on my end that has ultimately helped me to be a better person because I hold myself to such a strict standard. The difficulty has just been with finding a balance to where I'm not to where I can achieve things that I'm proud of without beating myself up over it and, kind of spiraling and, constantly being like depressed with myself because I don't think it's good enough. So there's a tightrope I've had to walk, and I'm still learning how to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And honestly, that I really appreciate that answer. I feel like I relate to that in a lot of ways, and I think stemming from the internalized uh, co- uh, consciousness of it all, I I think that's a really good answer as to why somebody is that way. Like
Mhm.
you know, it's interesting. Like have you ever heard the parable, or I don't know if it's parable necessarily, but it's like the tale of two wolves. It's the two wolves within every single person that exists. There's the good wolf and the bad wolf,
Mhm.
and it's whichever wolf you feed is the stronger wolf of the two
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
It just I think I always think about that, and I think about my surroundings, and when I put myself around people who are good for me, like I tend to be a better person, and when
Right.
I don't, I tend to be a worse person. And sometimes like I think the person that's feeding the good wolf or the bad wolf can also be yourself and everything. I've gone through a lot of therapy to kind of, figure out how to try to feed the good wolf a little
Right.
more than the bad one. So
I get you.
your answer just kind of reminded me of that like thought concept or whatever. So sorry to kind of dive off somewhere, but all right. So talk to me about Am I Still Enough? This EP is 4 songs. It's a little more than 15 minutes, probably about 16 minutes.
Mhm.
The first thing I noticed is the difference between it and Tails musically, because Tails is this big, dynamic, diverse uh, piece of work that it features multiple different genres,
Mhm.
a really big band setting, and then you have Am I Still Enough, which really seems stripped down. It's primarily acoustic. It's very intimate. It seems like in many cases it's just you and a guitar basically kind of telling this story.
Mhm.
Um, what was the process for making this EP?
The process was really interesting, and this is probably going to be a bit of a longer answer because it's something I kind of have to address the backstory and
Sure.
what led from point A to point B. So Altruist was a really big undertaking. That was like the culmination of like years and years of going to college and getting to know the other musicians in the scene around me and getting really immersed in hyperpop and electronic music and also picking up guitar and rediscovering all of this music from my childhood that I was really into, and kind of all of that got kind of wrapped up into one big ball of the styles and influences and the musical palette that went into Altruist. And so that record ended up being like a very holistic representation of the kind of music I was listening to at the time, and the sounds that I wanted to bring forth. Um, but then after that project came out, um, Stuck in the Midwest came out, and that song is kind of like a tongue in cheek, like almost like poking fun at myself because all of the songs that I write are sad, and so it like that song is kind of just like a really like kind of me trying to be self-aware about it and like poking fun at myself and just singing it like about like ridiculous things in like kind of a sad way.
Yeah.
And that was really fun, but I didn't really consider that to be like a part of anything. It was more like a post-Altruist like commentary on that album being so narratively heavy. And so
Yeah.
I went forward, and then from that some stuff happened to me in my personal life. And I won't go into too much detail, but I had an incident with where some of my boundaries were crossed.
Hmm.
And that ended up leading to a long period where I was really struggling to grapple with it all. I wasn't in a great financial place at the time. I was in like my audio engineering career kind of went through a cold spot. Like there are just time periods where like nobody wants to record music. Like it hit the summer of
Yeah.
this year, and all of a sudden it's nice out, like it's warm outside for the first time in forever. Everyone wants to go to the beach.
Nobody wants to work.
No one wants to be in a studio with no windows. So like
Yeah.
I was going through a rough financial period. I was going through a rough mental period, and I started writing a new record. Um, and Don't Touch My Body, which was the other non-album single that I did, was kind of the first jab of that, and that kind of deals with boundaries being crossed and um, being placed in situations that I lacked the mental fortitude to put my foot down and say this is not okay with me and get myself out. And
Hmm.
so there was an album that was made around that theme, and the record was called The Morning After. It was kind of more like a fusion shoegaze project, which was a sound that I was really into at the time. And so most of this year was spent working on that. And so originally that album was going to be my planned release for this year. It was ready, mixed and mastered, everything was done. We were getting ready to put it out, and then all of a sudden I realized that I wasn't ready to put it out, which was kind of a crazy realization for me because I've never had that problem before of like making something and like unequivocally truly like believing in it and being ready to share it with the world, and then all of a sudden being like, wait a second, I don't know if I can do this. Like
Yeah.
that's never happened to me before. And so after much deliberation, I ended up shelving it and I put it in the vault, and it killed me to do it because I loved those songs and I loved what that record was about, but I just simply wasn't ready for the world to hear it, and I wasn't ready to face all of the all of kind of the mental like traumatic loose ends that I had left open in the process of making that record, because it was a really difficult record to write because of the subject matter that it was based on. And
Yeah.
I was in a position of realizing that I had not finished dealing with all of the stuff that had come up while I was making that record. And so then we arrive at Am I Still Enough? Where I'm trying to, like, essentially with this record, I was trying to figure out what I had left to say. Because I went through this period where I just really disliked my own music. Like I would go back and listen to The Morning After, and I would go back and I would listen to Altruist, and I'd be like, I can't believe I made this. And of course, all artists do that to some degree. You know, we all
Yeah.
listen to our old stuff and we're like, ah, I wish I could have done this better. Or like, ah, I don't like how I mix the vocal on
Every
this. Or like,
time.
ah, you know, like that's how it goes. You know, we all do
Yeah.
that. But I was kind of stuck in this loop of just being like, I can't believe I put this out and thought it was good enough. And it led me to this really unhealthy place of kind of questioning my own artistic integrity and whether or not I had any stories left to tell. And so then that kind of became the central thesis for Am I Still Enough, which is quite literally about like my relationship with my own music and how it pertains to my own psyche, and whether or not I still can tell stories that I believe in and that I believe people want to hear. And so
Hmm.
it's you're right in that it is really raw and it is really stripped back, because I felt that that was the only way to go about presenting a message like that. Um, and it was very scary. It's a very scary record to put together and to think about, but it essentially came from this long like creative dark period where I had so much trouble making anything that I eventually was like, you know what? Let me just sit down and write about what's on my mind right now and get back to basics and just write songs with me and my guitar, and I'll see if I can make something of it. So that was kind of the genesis behind the record. I know that was a really long answer, but hopefully it brings you some clarity as to where my head was at.
No, honestly, that's really incredible. Just kind of unpacking everything that you said, like, do you think one of your hesitations for putting out the album is just kind of equating it to, if this album's out in the world, the inspiration for the content of this album is also out in the world? Do you think maybe that kind of pumped your brakes on it?
I don't know. I think honestly not really. I think in if anything I was motivated to put it out because I felt that what had been done to me had to mean something.
Mm,
And I struggled with it for a long time because this thing happened to me. I was taken advantage of, and I won't go into too much detail on it, but
sure.
it felt senseless to me, you know? Like it felt like it had no reason behind it. Like it just kind of happened, and I didn't really know what to think about that. Like to grapple with the existential implication of the fact that someone can just do something to me at any time and there's nothing I can do about it was something that bothered me a lot. And of course I know there's like unhealthy foundations to that idea. Like of course like people will sometimes try to take advantage of you. And that's why
Yeah.
boundaries are important. And that's why being able to put your foot down and say this is not okay is important. But if anything, I felt that taking this thing that happened to me and converting it into something that other people can listen to and find meaning in was what was motivating me to do it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like to be able
Yeah.
to take this thing that was senseless and make it into something that someone can relate to, even if they haven't necessarily been through that same thing themselves, was something that was really important to me in the process of making that record. And you know, because I wanted it to have meaning, you know.
Yeah.
um and then I think the thing that caused me to pump the brakes was just like there were some logistical factors involved as well. Like we had a really difficult time putting together the release show because there were some lineup changes with my band, and there were some things that went on that were outside of my control. And so
Mhm.
it was logistically difficult to get the pieces in order. The album got delayed a few times, and then it was like at one point it got pushed all the way back out to like summer of like next year. And at that point I was just like, I don't know if I can hold on to all of these songs and be forced to think about what happened to me constantly for that amount
For
of
a
time.
year.
You know
Yeah.
what I
So
mean?
yeah.
And
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
right. And so it kind of just became this thing of like, okay, like if I'm not ready and if it's getting to the point where this is eating at me to the extent where like I'm dreading thinking about it and I don't really want to do it anymore, why am I still doing it? And
Yeah.
so that was kind of the genesis for it. It didn't really come from a place of like not wanting to like legitimize what happened to me. I'm happy to own what happened to me. I just wasn't ready to to put it out into the world because it would mean I would have to reckon with it all the time
Hmm. Yeah.
for for however long that takes. And like as mentioned on Am I Still Enough? I'm in therapy again. I'm in the process of trying to move on and reckon with what happened,
Hmm.
and not kind of sink further into it by having to like structure this narrative and rehearse the songs and sing the songs all the time. It just got to a point where it was difficult for me, and I had to admit that it was too much, and that was something that was really difficult for me to do.
Well, this is what we like to call in the industry a segue,
Mm,
because that was a perfect transition to my next question. Not to be funny about um the heaviness of the context of what you're talking about, but
mhm.
it's funny, ironic, not funny, haha.
Of course.
I'm being frank, the content here is a little bleak in this new EP.
Yeah.
And I'm in therapy again. You walk the listener through fighting depression and really struggling with mental illness, which is something I've also dealt with.
Yeah.
Then in Wish I Had a New Story for You, you kind of touch on the monotony of these struggles and how it can feel like you're sort of spinning your wheels.
Hmm.
Do you feel comfortable in sort of diving into your headspace while writing these songs?
Sure. Yeah. So I didn't realize this for most of this year, but it occurred to me like as I was writing for Am I Still Enough that it's been exactly 10 years since I attempted when I was in high school.
Mhm.
And that's something that I touched on in Altruist, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Um, I just didn't realize it had been 10 years, but once I realized it had been 10 years, I was just like, oh my God, like that was 10 years ago. And in spite of everything that I've done and all the ways that I've grown since then, sometimes I still find myself dealing with a lot of the same things that I was dealing with then. And
Yeah.
so on Am I Still Enough, there's this very persistent fear that I'm backsliding, that
Mhm.
I'm kind of returning to my old ways and that I'm like undoing all the ways in which I've grown, which of course I know is not fully true. Like mental health ebbs and flows. We know this. It can never
Right.
be a consistent upward progression all the time where you just keep getting better and it never gets worse. Like
Yeah.
I went through some things that were really difficult this year. And so it's natural and it makes sense for me to still be dealing with these things, but like it more so came up as I found myself slipping back into old thought patterns and self-destructive behaviors and looking at myself and being like, why am I still dealing with this? Why am I still stuck on the same things that bothered me 10 years ago when I was a teenager? And so when I was writing those first two songs especially, like it's like there's a lot of messaging in I'm in therapy again about like trying to work on yourself but feeling like it's futile or feeling like it
Mhm.
means nothing because I've been down this road before and yet somehow I'm back where I started. Um and same like similar things on Wish I Had a New Story for You because there was this real feeling of like you said spinning my wheels and always singing about the same things and always telling the same stories because I seem to be unable to move past these like few specific things that I particularly struggle with. And the songs came from an unhealthy place, and I'm certainly cognizant of that to a degree. Like, of course it's not true that I'm in exactly the same place as I was 10 years ago. Of course I've grown since then, and of course like
Yeah.
that deserves to be acknowledged and celebrated, but um I more so did it as an outlet for everything that I was feeling at the time and um kind of trying to be open and honest about that fear um so that I can deal with it and try to process it in therapy and verbalize some of those thoughts so that I can try to put this behind me and continue moving forward. But the element of being stuck in the past and being unable to move past these particular things that have bothered me for so long is a very persistent theme on this record, and so that definitely underscores a lot of the songs here.
Okay, yeah. Uh, Honestly, being a person who has struggled with depression, and different stages of you know mental illness,
Hmm.
I think I really was able to kind of translate a lot of what this EP was like. Like there was just a lot of the lyrical content. I was just like, I've been there, I've been there, I've been there. And I think it was interesting when you were kind of talking about, clearly I've grown, from the last 10 years, but sometimes there are these elements of, mental illness where you feel like you're back to square one.
Right.
And I, uh, I suffer with PTSD,
Hmm.
and through PTSD, I have derivatives of, you know, occasional bouts of depression. I've been diagnosed with an eating disorder. I've been diagnosed with like ADD. Not so. Not, let me take. I have not been diagnosed, but my therapist has alluded to the possibility of
Right.
ADD.
For sure.
Not officially diagnosed. I have been diagnosed with an eating disorder and PTSD, and then they've alluded to the depression, which I think, you know, in times can be like, duh, and then there are other times, with the ADD and stuff like that, where it's kind of obvious.
Right.
Um, for a long time, I went to therapy for it and everything. And then I actually went on a hiatus, and I felt like I was doing really well, wasn't
Right.
needing it, like doing so great. And something happened that sort of started triggering little things in my life where I was like, I realized, like I had this recurring element to, like this recurring trigger that just kind of kept coming back, and I was just
Right.
kind of brushing it off, but it was essentially snowballing without me noticing. And it kind of all came to a head last year to where I started talking to uh, a therapist again. And as we're kind of delving into it, I basically had to kind of pump the brakes, and I stopped mid uh, mid therapy,
Yeah.
which is not something that, as you know, you're not supposed to do that,
Yeah.
but I kind of did, and I was like, I can handle it and everything. And it was a couple months ago, my wife and I were just kind of talking, and noticing like these patterns that were occurring with me, where I was just kind of, it was almost like this anxiety that was, presenting itself within me. And we realized that like I was exhibiting these indicators of like obsessive compulsive nature,
Right.
to where I was really pulling a lot of anxiety from, like things not falling perfectly into place.
Right.
And it's just when you don't take care of yourself, in these manners, like you can really like just kind of let things snowball, and it like metastasizes in different forms, like around you or whatever.
Right.
So I when I listened to um Am I Still Enough, I was just like, man, it's like I can relate with all of this stuff that you're talking about. Like I've felt every last bit of that before. And like I just honestly like I I just wanted to like talk to you and be like, man, like, are you okay and everything? Because like I just felt like, it was almost like looking into a mirror, like listening to your songs and everything. And so it was, I say all that to say, I'm not here, trying to be a big brother or whatever. I'm saying um selfishly, as an from an artistic perspective, I think that this is like one of the most transparent things that I've ever heard when somebody is making music about mental illness. Like, you've really captured it. And I think that it's quite genius, honestly.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
And it's really weird to give praise to something that, like can be very painful to so many people.
Yeah.
But I also think that, kind of what you were alluding to earlier with the incident that happened to you versus, wanting to be able to put that album out,
Mhm.
like I feel like sometimes people have like they feel a sense of like responsibility to bring awareness to their experience so that it can help
Yeah.
people going forward. Like that is the baseline of how we connect with humanity, right?
Yeah.
Um, Taking what we learn and passing it to the next generation or the next people who um, like fall into this pattern of having to deal with this. And you've really, like, all things considered, done it very well here. So I just want to tell you that because I think it's brilliant. Um, in particular, I really love A Moth in Circles. It reminds me of some of the original like emo music that came out, that started the emo movement before it got cringe.
Hmm.
Like we're talking like Dashboard Confessionals early days when it was just Chris and an acoustic guitar,
Hmm.
like 20, 25 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, do you feel like this stripped down performance helped you articulate your feelings on this song and on the EP? Like, was it was it a better amplification of where you were, or did that have anything to do with it?
It's a difficult question. I think, well, before I get into this, let me first say that, like, man, I'm sorry you've been going through all this with your own mental health and everything
Oh,
going on.
thank you, and same to you. Yeah, I'm good,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's just shit happens.
Yeah, no, agreed. And like, similar spot. Like, I'm doing better now.
Yeah,
This album was like recorded in mostly like October, and I was not doing well in October, frankly. And like since we've gotten closer to release and like I've put like the writing phase behind me, like I do feel better. And
yeah.
working with my therapist has helped a lot. But it always ebbs and flows, and I'm glad that you related to it, and I hope it didn't bring up anything that was too negative for you from where you sit. But it means a lot to hear you say that I captured it well. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually the opposite, man. It made me feel like I wasn't alone, which is, I think, honestly, why we do it,
That is
So,
why we do it. Yeah.
yeah,
And that's like a large part of my motivation for why I try to be open about these things is because, like I said, like if other people can find meaning in my experience, then I've done my job, and that is the part that fulfills me more
exactly.
than anything. Like, my Spotify like artists wrapped came out a little bit ago, and I was a top 10 artist for three people this year, and it's like that's not a huge number. Like, there's so many people on my feed that like are posting their numbers from like other artists that I follow and that I'm friends with, and like there's so many people that are doing way bigger numbers than I am. But
Yeah,
honestly, like I don't really care about the numbers insofar as the numbers. I care about the numbers insofar as they are an indication of whether I'm reaching people. And
yeah,
I think if I can reach people and I can give people something to grab onto in my experience that helps them find meaning or catharsis or reckon with something that's going on for them, then that's all that I can do and that's all that I can hope for. as an artist, you know? So that's why I do it. And I think you're right in that that's kind of the entire point, one might say.
It almost makes it more personal, doesn't it? To see like I was a top 10 for three people,
Yeah.
and like you can almost reach out and touch these people who have been touched by your music, and
Hmm.
you almost feel that it helped them, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's a yeah, it feels more personal, and I love that. And yeah, that's incredible.
Thank you. Um, but yeah, I mean, in regards to like the acoustic, like stripped back nature of A Moth in Circles and of this entire record, it was really uncomfortable at first, honestly, because like you mentioned, Altruist is very maximalist, and like so is most of my other stuff, and I think part of that just comes from being like having started as a bedroom musician, being Gen Z, because this is something I think about a lot as well. But like the climate of being an artist is like very different than it used to be. Like
Yeah.
it used to be that you could write really well, or you could play an instrument really well, or you could sing really well, and then you got a record deal, and then like they paid for you to make some demos, and then you take those demos, and then you get a contract, and then you make an album, and like you're in a studio, and they give you a team from the record label to work with, and you've got all this equipment, and like it's hard to get there, of course, but
Right.
there's kind of like there was kind of a process in place, whereas me, like, and plenty of other people my age who I've talked to and worked with, like we started in our bedrooms. Like I was living in my parents' house, and I was like 17, and I'm like, my room sucks like acoustically, and like, so I'm constantly getting like subpar recordings, and like I don't really know what I'm doing because I'm trying to teach myself everything, and like no one's like
Mhm.
come to me and been like, hey, maybe you should record that so it's not clipping, like, set your gain a little lower, and so you're figuring everything out on the fly, and so I feel like I ended up developing a lot of tricks up my sleeve, some of which were genuinely really good for what I was trying to do, but some of which maybe weren't based on like best practices or whatever the case may be, because I was constantly in a place of having to compensate for subpar recording conditions, or like not having like much gear or like options at my fingertips. And so I feel like a lot of my production style evolved from that, where I'm constantly layering sounds and putting more stuff in to kind of like fill out the space and be able to like almost like patch the holes in like the songs that I was making at the time. But with this one, I very much wanted to make it really intimate, and so a lot of thought went into what I was going to record, how I was going to record it, and how everything was going to shake out. And I felt very naked doing it,
Mhm.
because I haven't really worked in this style before. Like that was new for me. But um, I was listening to I was listening to a ton of Elliott Smith when I did this record. So it's funny that you mentioned like early emo stuff, because I feel like that kind of lives in the same space for me. But I was listening to a lot of Elliott Smith, a lot of Bon Iver, and so I was kind of just like, okay, the songs have to be as authentic as I can make them, and as long as they are as authentic as I can make them, the imperfections in the music become part of the music, and they become part of the experience. So I was like,
Mhm.
I had to learn to not obsess over making everything perfect all the time. Like I kind of tried to really just focus on what I was trying to get at in the heart of the song, and bring that out first and foremost, as opposed to like making everything sound like acoustically, sonically really polished or really industry standard or whatever. I kind of just wanted to get to the heart of it, and
Yeah.
um, try and bring out what I was saying as much as I could. And so it was it was uncomfortable, but I think in a lot of ways it informed the lyrics that I wrote and the subtext behind all the songs that I did. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it actually more than does. And it it really kind of is illuminating. You mentioned Bon Iver. He's my favorite artist. I switched from Radiohead to Bon Iver,
Nice.
particularly recently with his last album. I just thought was brilliant. And I kind of wanted to touch on what you said, because so his latest album, Sable Fable, is like this um compilation of an EP put out last year versus, this album, this like transcendent album that he put out this year, that's just this big thing. And like it addresses like him finally being happy and stuff.
Hmm.
But what you touched on kind of reminds me of his EP that he put out last October
Hmm.
called Sable,
Hmm.
which like he referenced Sable as being like it's like the darkest shade of black that there is.
Hmm.
And that entire EP, it's 3 songs, and it's just stripped down to absolutely nothing. It's him and
Right.
an acoustic guitar essentially. And I think he did the same thing. Like he wanted to kind of come full circle with the entire Bon Iver project, and he wanted to. I think he even used similar words to what you said, but it's similar to like just capturing the heart of it all. And he wasn't worried about doing this big, impressive, produced thing. Like he wanted it to be just intimate and singular. And I really think that that's what you did here with Am I Still Enough? It's just very like it's almost like you're on a stage and the entire lighting has just gone off and there's just this soft spotlight that's on you and your guitar, and like it's just like nobody in the auditorium is making a sound. Everybody's just tuned into what you're doing, and I just think it's so profound how you've done it. So I yeah, your answer is kind of exactly how I felt when I
Hmm.
listened to it. You just described, so it's awesome.
Thank you.
um I also want to ask you, so and you've kind of touched on a couple things here, but so I saw a social media post last month when you were announcing the EP
Hmm.
that you kind of hinted that this might possibly be your last album.
Hmm.
Is that a definitive decision, or are you simply kind of contemplating like seeing where everything goes from here? I know you said earlier that you've got an album that you've shelved.
Hmm.
Like, are you ever going to be in a place where you might want to release that, or are you thinking no?
It's a complicated question, and I think I'd be lying to you if I tried to give you a definitive answer right now.
Sure.
I think it's really complicated because when I made the album, when I made The Morning After, I was in a place where I really wanted to put it out in the world and to allow people to find meaning in what I wrote about. And when that release fell through, it really took a toll on me, and I really kind of went off the rails and was in this very dark, depressive state for a while. And during that time, I really struggled to engage with any of my own music, to like I really struggled to be proud of anything else that I had made. And I was kind of in this place of having this like existential quarter life crisis where I was like, well shit, if I don't resonate with any of the stories that I've told, if I don't enjoy the process of making music anymore, if I am dreading putting things out in the world, then why am I still doing it? You know?
Mhm.
And I think like a lot of those feelings ended up on this new project as well, where it's like um reckoning with my relationship with my own music and the stories that I have to tell. And so there, yeah, for a time there was a period where I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know that I have anything left to say. I don't know if I have anything left to offer people. And like I don't really know if that's true or not. I think The Morning After is going to be really hard to release because I don't know if as I continue going to therapy and continue trying to like reckon with this and move on, if I will ever be in a place again where I want to fully embrace that narrative and
Yeah,
put myself back in that headspace that I was in. Like and I don't know that for sure. Maybe in a year, maybe in a decade or whatever, I'll be like, yeah, I want to do this and
I
I'm
want to.
fine,
Yeah,
but I don't know that.
yeah, absolutely.
So like I really don't know if that project will ever see the light of day, which quite honestly breaks my heart. But I think it was made at a moment in time where I was dealing with a particular thing, and that
You're
moment in
trying to
time,
move past that thing. Yeah.
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 Um, I would love to be able to share those songs with the world, but I don't want to do it at the expense of my own sanity. And so
Yeah.
I have to figure out my relationship with that. In regards as to whether or not this will be my last project, I don't know. I think it's gonna I'm in a better place now than I was when I was having these thoughts, but at the same time I do think if I'm going to keep doing it, I have to first rediscover the joy of doing it.
Hmm.
And not to say that I didn't enjoy putting this project together, because I did, but it came at a very real cost of me like sinking deeper and deeper into this place that I was in. And so I have to, if I'm going to do it again, I have to find a way to really find unequivocal joy in it again and not be concerned about all this other stuff that I've been bogged down with recently. And
Yeah.
as with the concerns with the morning after, I just don't know if that will happen and when it will happen. I think it really depends on my mental state and how everything shakes out with me. And so ultimately I've been trying to make peace with the fact that this might be the last batch of songs that I release, and if it is, then I think this is a perfectly fine way to go out. Um,
Hmm.
but like I said, nothing is set in stone. Maybe I'll change my mind, and honestly, I'm kind of hoping that I find some way to renegotiate my relationship with my own music to the point where I enjoy it again. Because it does bring me, or it used to bring me so much joy, and I had a purpose, you know, like it really felt like I had found my purpose. And I don't think it's gone entirely. I think maybe I just need to rediscover what it is. But
Yeah.
it's so hard to be sure. I wish I could give you a more clear answer, but I think it's all up in the air and it's all going to depend. And I have to get back to working on myself and figuring out what it is that I want to say and how I'm going to say it and support my own mental health in the process. You know?
Yeah. Not only do I think your answer is clear, but I think once again, I think as an independent artist myself, I've found myself in a completely relatable place. And I think, like there's this shared affliction amongst independent artists altogether where, there's this sort of imposter syndrome because, like we want to try to promote and market our music in a way that, we see mainstream artists promote and market their music.
Mhm.
And, with the end game ultimately being, like people want to, break through into the mainstream
Right.
industry themselves. When the reality of the matter is that's just not the case. And I think, like as time goes on, and people just start to realize, speaking of myself, like, I'm in my 40s. I have no, not only do I have no aspirations, but I have no um like unrealistic ideas that I'm going to break out into mainstream music. I've accepted that is happening. And sometimes that actually even makes it a little bit more difficult to just say, like I want to continue to do it just because of the love of music. Because once you do kind of have that acceptance, you start to think, like, who am I even really doing it for? I don't think
Yeah.
there's anybody really listening. Is this just a hobby that I have for myself that, nobody really cares about? Are we all just out there on social media trying to be mock-up content creators and
Right.
promote our own stuff and, like we're not concerning ourselves with what everybody else is doing? Like it really does. Like, like I feel like it eventually comes to a place of where we feel like, like, do we belong in this, you know,
Mhm.
scene? And
Yeah.
so I really appreciate what you said there and how you said it because like, yeah, I've felt different versions of that myself and everything too. Once again, I appreciate how honest and open you are about how you feel about everything. I just think it's important things for people to hear what you have to say, and I do think that you have an incredible platform that people can be drawn to. I don't want you to ever put anything before your mental health,
Hmm.
but I, coming personally from my experience listening to your music, I do think it could benefit other people, if they were to find your music. I think that a lot of what you have to say resonates and it's really powerful. You have powerful messaging from Tales all the way to this EP. It's really awesome. So thank you so much for your music and everything that you do.
Thank you.
Just want to say
Thank you for giving me the platform to talk about it and for sharing it with others. I appreciate it more than you know.
yeah, absolutely. And so as we discussed at the beginning of this interview, my favorite song on the EP, Moth in Circles, you are going to now do a live performance of that song. So I am really looking forward to this. Everybody, this is Han performing A Moth in Circles.
Don't wait for me. I've wasted long enough and you're not saving me. As much as you wanna try, the world is bearing down on me to squash me underfoot. And maybe I'll forget about it if I just don't look. It's clear I'll never grow the way you have. I still remain stuck in the past after our sun turns red and dies. Supernova sympathize. I've ran out of things to say. No more songs for me to play. If I can't make you smile, what else am I here for? A moth in circles, dancing around the same old land forever and ever. There's nothing else in store. So useless in my heart of hearts. Euthanize that part of us. I walk out of your life and close the door. It used to flow so easy. I feel lighter than the breeze. Now there's a piece of me long since drifted out to sea. I try to force my pen across the page, find an outlet for the stormy days, find a long pen out of space in my brain. It's true, I'll never matter much to you. I never learned to read the room. I'm just the jester of the chord. Say, who am I dancing for? New songs go straight into the trash. I sing as if you ever wanted that. If I can't tell the story, what else am I here for? A moth in circles, dancing around the same old land forever and ever. There's nothing else in store. So sanctify the emptiness, washing out the scent of us. I'm sorry I'm not how I was before. So far away, so far away. Just pull the plug in life as I know it. Losing touch in my soul, I hope it improves down the road. But the truth is that I really just don't know. So I'm a moth in circles, dancing around the same old lamp forever and ever, misguided by the moon. So squeeze me dry for every note, find the letters that I wrote, then let me go and pray. I'll see you soon.
All right. That was A Moth in Circles by Han. Han, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today. Um, the new EP, Am I Still Enough? It releases on December 8th on all streaming platforms everywhere. You heard it here. Han, thank you, thank you, thank you for once again taking the time to speak with us here at 15 Minutes of Fame.
Thank you for having me so much. I always appreciate it, and it's great to see you giving small creators a platform. We all appreciate it so much. I hope everyone's giving you flowers.
I appreciate that. No flowers are necessary, but like my flowers are being able to hear music such as yours and everybody else's. So, thank you, and I look forward to hearing how the EP does when it releases and everything. And I look forward to hearing more from you. If we don't have another album from you in the future, I still want to hear from you, man. Because I think you're a profound artist, and whether or not you choose to continue to do music, I know whatever it is you do next will be great as well too. So thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot. I'll be in touch, whatever happens. You'll be the first to know.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Mhm.